everybody's in here. Good to go.
Okay, I hope so.
Marty, good evening.
It is 7 o'clock and we have a quorum, so let's begin. Good evening. Welcome to the December 20th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Southampton Conservation Board. In accordance with the Town Board's adoption of Local Law Number 14 of 2022, the Board's meetings are being held both in person at Town Hall and via video conference through Zoom webinar. The link to participate in this meeting via video conference can be found on the town's website and the town clerk's agendas and meetings portal. You can also watch the live stream video and submit written comments for the public record through the town website. If you are attending via Zoom and wish to speak during the meeting, then please click the raise hand icon. As a reminder to all applicants, agents, members of the public who wish to speak at the meeting, please state your name and Hamilton residence for the record. I'd invite everyone to rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public hearings, A019125, Jeffrey W. Howell. The applicant requests an adjournment to March 13th, 2024. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in this application?
Motion to adjourn until March 13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A022093. Andrea Lusso and Maria Stoyanova. And the applicant requests adjournment to March 13th, 2024. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in this application?
Motion to adjourn until March 13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A022059, St. George Camp LLC.
This is a new hearing we have happening to posting and mailing in compliance with the town code. The board does have jurisdiction to open the hearing.
Thank you. Aaron, begin when you're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Aram Tertunian, First Coastal, West Hampton Beach, New York, on behalf of the applicant, 20 St. George. I'm joined this evening by Mr. James Hume, attorney for the applicant, and Mr. Alan Litt, who is 20 St. George, is on his way. He drove 3.5 hours from New York to be here this evening, but he did need to get a hamburger at Fellingham's first. So he'll be right on his way. What I wanted to do was just basically to walk everybody through what we're doing on this, what we propose to do on this site. And in the packages that I handed up, if you go to the last 2 pages, you'll find this project elements sheet and the project jurisdiction sheet, and you can follow along from there. And on the left side of that sheet, although it'll probably be very hard to see, we've identified all the individual activities that we want to do. So the first thing is in this brown colored area right here. Well, let me describe the site. This site has approximately 169 feet of bulkheading on the Aspetuck River. And there are fringing wetlands to the north and to the south of that bulkhead. It's an L-shaped site, and the elevation rises from around 5 feet at the water up to as high as 14 feet, and when you get up to St. George Place, kind of gradually rising. It's a nice and even slope. And the area is currently developed with a single-family home, with a garage, a swimming pool, and other accessory sheds and a few other things. So what does the applicant want to do here? The applicant wants to, number one, preserve the existing home, but and in order to do so, he's confronted with some practical difficulties. And that is that the home was originally built in 1922, and I'm sorry, 1928. And the structure is basically 2x4. So in order to renovate the home, which was the original idea was, well, we're just gonna take out the windows, raise the roof, and rebuild the home on the inside. The contractor who looked at this said, we'd have to sister up every piece of structural on every wall in order to do that, even just to meet the energy rating code. So there's no way with 2x4 construction that we could just change the windows. Just can't be done. Won't be able to meet code. So in order to do that, we have to remove the roof and remove the walls down to the current deck, and then rebuild the roof and the walls on the same exact spot in order to accomplish a renovation. I should point out that there is some history of this lot with the board. This property was damaged during Sandy. They got a conservation permit to elevate the house, to elevate the foundation, and to put the existing house on the new foundation. There's also a permit to do a small porch on the front, and I think a deck. And in that process, there was established a non-fertilization, non-disturbance buffer zone. And all that is shown on the survey that we submitted with the file. So that's the first aspect of the site, is the renovation of the existing one-story dwelling will still be a one-story dwelling at the end. The other aspects are the addition of a two-story addition, which would be significantly landward of the existing dwelling, and also a two-story addition which would be immediately landward of the dwelling on the southern part. So a two-story addition connected by a corridor on the north, and an addition directly onto the building on the south. In so doing, you'll see there's areas in red. That's existing home, deck, stairs, etc. Those will all be demolished and removed. At the same time, there's going to be a proposed two-story garage that is in the northeast corner. There's a proposed patio off the southeast corner of southeast corner of the building. The sanitary system, which currently sits here in the upper left, which would be the northwest portion of the property, sits in one of the lowest spots on the property, directly in the intertidal groundwater table. And that's, at its closest point, is about 28 feet from the wetlands. That's going to be removed and abandoned as per the Department of Health regulations, and a new IA system built in more or less in the center of the property, 150 feet away from the wetlands, and at an elevation of about, the elevation is, yes, just about 10 feet above sea level. So there's actually going to be, instead of being sitting in the groundwater, there's actually going to be 6.5 feet of percolation through sandy soil. There's a whole series of dry wells that are shown in green to handle the runoff. There is one dry well that we have proposed a little closer. That one's going to be moved, and it's noted on your site plan as relocate. It was proposed in that spot. We're going to move it back to be clustered with the other two. There's a existing pervious driveway. That pervious driveway is going to be maintained, and a new pervious driveway brought in from St. George Place to provide circulation. And then there's a proposed pool, a pool patio, covered patio, pool house, and a sport court. And all of those are in compliance with the wetland standards. and the existing garage, is shown in red, is gonna be removed. Everything in red is gonna be removed, everything in green is new proposed, and what's in brown is existing to be renovated. So I think just sets the table for what we'd like to do on this site. So what I did, just to maintain the flow of the conversation was to take a staff's preliminary report and just respond to it, on a point-by-point basis where I wanted to explain something. I don't want to go through it in detail. I'll hit the highlights. And this is Mr. Litt, who is the owner of the property. And again, just clarifying, we're not demolishing the structure. We're maintaining the foundation and maintaining the deck, and we have to remove the walls in order to be able to build something that will comply with code. There was a comment about some wooden wire fence and other things that were within the non-disturbance, non-fertilization zone. Those were done by a previous owner. We proposed to have all that removed and that buffer zone restored. The location on the addition on the landward side of the house, which is this one in the southeast corner, that's about 91 feet from the wetland and on the landward side. The two-story addition in the northern part is actually about 75 feet from the wetland there. There are also some proposed air conditioning units, both here for the new addition and also up by the pool house. All of those will be elevated to meet FEMA. Most of these details I talked about. The things that I want to get into a bit of a discussion on have to do with, I think, starting with the sanitary system. So in your packet, you'll find a spreadsheet, which is actually a nitrogen load calculator that I prepared. And so what I did was I went to the Department of Health website, and from that website, they give how many, what is the discharge on a conventional sanitary system. And I calculated that for the existing home. And that results in 58 pounds of nitrogen being discharged every year. I then, from the same website, they give you the amount of nitrogen expected to be discharged from an IA system, and I recalibrated that amount for the number of new bedrooms here, which is going to be 10 bedrooms, not 4. But that new amount is only 22 pounds per year. So we have a reduction of 62% in the nitrogen load, and instead of it going directly into the creek, it is now located here where it's going to percolate through 6.5 feet of sandy soil, and it's going to be 150 feet away. I think that's pretty significant, and I wanted to, I ran that calculator because I wanted you to understand the magnitude of the change, which in my opinion is pretty significant. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in a little bit of detail is the existing foundation. So as I mentioned earlier, the existing foundation was rebuilt in 2013, 2014 as a result of Sandy, and it was and the house was elevated to meet the FEMA standard. In staff's review, they pointed out that the limit of moderate wave action ran through the middle of the house, and asked how we were going to comply with that, because the foundation that's right now would not have complied with the limit of moderate wave action. So Mr. Litt, the owner, at a great expense and time, engaged an engineering firm in Florida that specializes in FEMA map amendments. So over the course of a year, that firm prepared the digital models that FEMA requires in order to demonstrate that this area actually was not in a limited wave impact area. In fact, they demapped the entire area north of Turkey Bridge. So they didn't just look at Mr. Litt's property, they actually modeled the entire creek. So these maps, these new maps are in your packet. They look like this. And so the FEMA map has actually been amended to reflect this new condition. And it only makes sense because, well, first of all, that's what the models actually show, was that there are no waves once you get north of the bridge. There may be waves, but they're less than 1.5 feet. And so that resolved any issue about the foundation. And I think that's really important because the object here all along was to renovate this one-story building. And the applicant, through diligence, overcame two significant items. One is the FEMA designation, which was erroneous and was changed to be accurate, and the structural issue tied to not just the structure, but also tied to compliance with the energy code. And there's a letter in your packet from Oakley Gentry, who is the principal at Gentry Construction. You may have seen his signs. He's built homes all over Southampton for many, many years. And in there, he explains in detail why the current structure could not be effectively or practicably rehabbed to comply with the energy and the structural code. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to bring to your attention. Okay. I'd like to speak briefly about staff's recommendation. And in our package that we've given you, we evaluate that recommendation against what we have proposed. And it's our opinion, based upon that analysis, that staff's recommendation is not practicable, and really what we've proposed is the most practicable. And what we've done here, in addition to, excuse me, I want to keep stepping on that. In addition to all of these items we've talked about, we've greatly expanded this buffer zone. So the buffer zone prior to, the current buffer zone is about 6,500 square feet. And it's about 20 feet off of both the bulkhead and the wetland along the shoreline of the property. We've expanded that buffer zone, so in the southern part, it is a full 75 feet. And it stretches in front of the house, similar in a similar width as to what exists. And in the northern part, it's got it's approximately 68 feet wide for a net buffer zone of about 19,000 square feet. So we've more than tripled the buffer zone as part of the mitigation plan. And we think that that's pretty significant. And the greatest buffer zones are located in areas where there is no bulkheading, because those are the areas where the land is sloping down to the water, where you're getting the runoff that comes from the upland, and the area that needs the greatest amount of filtration, while the area in front of the house and behind the bulkhead is all level, and there really is no runoff towards the water. Plus, the bulkhead itself is vinyl interlock sheeting, so you don't have groundwater flow through it. So we're providing large buffer zones in the most vulnerable areas. And I would point out that the addition on the northern side right here is actually in a similar location as, in the same location as the staff's recommendation. So really this northern addition is not in question. Staff recommended a 60-foot buffer, and we've applied a 68-foot buffer. And I think that concludes my introductory comments. Mr. Hulme will give you his evaluation of the jurisdictional issues. Unless you have a question you'd like to ask me before that.
Yes. I'm looking at your color-coded survey rendition here, and is it correct that the green is are new structures,
That's correct.
and the brown is the existing structure?
That's correct. And the red is also existing to be removed.
Okay, okay, it's very seasonal colors here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening for the applicant, James N. Hume from Kelly Hume in West Hampton Beach. As Mr. Turchinian mentioned, I'm here to discuss the jurisdictional aspects of this. And obviously, the starting point for any of these kind of applications is whether or not there is an exception that takes the activity out of being regulated. And I think that under the Wetlands Code in the town of Southampton, there is such an exception that applies to a portion of this project, and it's found in chapter 325-4B9. And in the written submission that I made, what I did was I basically subdivided that ordinance, that section of the code, into its various elements to demonstrate how this project, to the extent that it does, comply with those elements, is an exception to the jurisdiction, and therefore would not require a wetlands permit. Just real briefly, the code section requires a bulkhead, which is a functional bulkhead, which is certainly in place here. That it's at least 100 feet in length, which this one is. It's 169 feet. That existed prior to 1993, which it does. That it relates to residential property, which it does as well. And what it indicates that there is that anything that is 50 feet or more from that bulkhead is an exception to the code. And I think the most important phrase in that section of the code is the requirement of that 50 feet being measured perpendicular to the bulkhead. And that's what we took into consideration in constructing this jurisdiction map. And we went from one end of the bulkhead to the other end of the bulkhead and created a zone that was 50 feet off of there. And if you look at that, the only part of the main structure is about 16 square feet, I think, that actually encroaches within the 50 feet. But the bulk of the main building falls outside of that zone. Clearly, some of the other structures fall within that zone, but I think are eligible for a permit for other reasons. But the central portion of this project appears under this analysis to be out of the jurisdiction based on the exception that's provided in the code. So it's
Do
pretty
you
simple.
want comments on that?
Pardon me?
Do you want comments on that?
Sure.
Okay. You started very well by quoting the code, but you left out the stuff that's important to show why it is regulated.
Okay.
So if you read the entire
Which I did,
paragraph, you'll
yes.
understand why it is regulated.
Well, I think I've come to a different conclusion based on my full reading of the same code section.
Well, let me make it easy for you. Any regulated activity which is no closer than 50 feet to surface waters on a residential parcel improved with a functional bulkhead or rock revetment where the activity is generally perpendicular to a bulkhead or revetment 100 feet or more in length, and provided further, okay, so we're not done yet.
Right.
You stop there.
Okay, well, please continue. And
And provided further that no other unbulkheaded and or unrevetted wetlands exist landward of such bulkhead or revetment. And they do.
Okay, and we eliminated that from our zone of no jurisdiction. If you look carefully at the map that
No,
we've
no, no,
drawn,
no, no,
we
no,
started the
no,
line
we're not-
from the edge
no,
of the
no.
bulkhead.
no, that's not what the code says.
Well, I disagree, but
Okay.
please.
Well, do you want to challenge a wetland line then?
Do I want to
You
challenge?
want
the
to
wetland?
challenge it?
No, I believe that we have a bulkhead that even with eliminating the portion that is, has adjacent wetlands, we're still well beyond the 100 feet that's required to eliminate the jurisdiction.
Okay, I'm pretty sure this board is going to decide we have jurisdiction. What do you want to do about that?
Well, I will take an exception to that, but we will still
okay, so-
continue to make the case that we're entitled to a permit regardless of that conclusion.
Do we continue or do we resolve this first?
I mean, we can resolve it right now. I would say, well, if the board is so inclined, that the board has never interpreted the section that way. But if you'd like to make a formal appeal of the jurisdictional issue, then you could do so, but that would have to be made first before you continue
Well,
everything else.
the board has made a determination similar to this in the three cases that I cited in my letter, where there were certain wetlands on adjacent properties.
But you pointed out in that letter that all of those properties had a bulkhead from one side of the property to the other side of the
Right, but
property.
that-
It wasn't just a portion of the property,
True,
all
but
those.
that's,
And they didn't have any wetlands landward of the bulkhead.
but there's nothing in that code section that requires the bulkhead to extend from one end to the other to be entitled to the jurisdiction exception.
It says a bulkhead on the property, and then it says no wetlands landward of that
Right.
bulkhead.
Correct, and we have eliminated that from the non-jurisdiction that we're claiming exists.
You can't just take the section of it though and say,
There's
We're
nothing in
taking
the
this
code that says that we
portion.
can't. The code just requires it to be at least 100 feet.
We've
And
always
that
either,
perpendicular.
we have not compartmentalized applications such as this. So if
Okay.
you want to go down that route, let's adjourn this, file your appeal, and we'll go through that process, and then we can pick this up later.
All right, well, can we conference for a moment before we make that decision?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to go through that formal appeal process first. You have to get a decision on that. Well, I think as a matter of law, we're always entitled to appeal whether you had jurisdiction or not, regardless of when we may take that appeal. So I think what we would like to do at this point is just have the record note our exception to your finding that you do have jurisdiction, and then we can move forward with the permit part of the application.
you want to note that in the record without actually filing, but you're acknowledging that you're not actually filing an appeal of the wetland boundary.
At this moment, no, but you never, jurisdiction is not waivable, either you have it or you don't. And so even if we go to the very end of this proceeding and you decide not to give us a permit, we can still appeal based on the jurisdiction. So that's our position.
Well, as part of the decision, depending on what it is, that would be part of the decision, because you would have to determine your jurisdiction before you could even go through the process of figuring out whether to issue a permit or not. So your exception could be noted, and then you could continue
Okay, thank you.
with the understanding that the board has never interpreted the bulkhead exemption as you are arguing.
Understood.
So if you file an appeal, what's that process?
You file a jurisdictional appeal,
Yeah,
so then you would file that, you go through the process to determine whether to grant the appeal or not.
to this board?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a separate application for that.
Okay.
I think it's just cleaner if they just appeal it right now. If they
It's a
don't
lot
agree.
cheaper to just,
Yeah.
Yeah, I understood, but.
to not appeal it and just understand what the result's gonna be.
I think I understand what the result's gonna be. So, I think
Yeah.
we're looking here to now proceed with the permit part of the,
Yeah.
application. So we're not looking for an adjournment for any
Okay.
purpose.
I mean, if you did appeal it and win, you could be the first one to be famous.
Well, that's true.
You could raise your price.
Wow, okay, well, I'm changing my mind, no. So that's the way we would like to proceed,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
If the board has any other questions of us, we're,
I just want to clarify just some numbers.
sure.
And perhaps you can help me out on some of these numbers. And I'm looking approximately in the center of the page that has project elements outlined in, or highlighted in blue. And I'm looking at the lot coverage for the existing and the proposed. And what I'm seeing is, it says house lot coverage is 3568 square feet. That is single-story house?
Yes.
Okay, and then the proposed house is 6267. Now, I know you've got a lot of other structures besides that, but I'm just focusing right now on just the house. 6257 or 67 square feet, is that gonna be two-story?
The brown portion will continue to be one story, and then the two additions on the north and on the south will be two-story.
Okay, so about part of each way.
This is the only two-story.
This is the only
This is only two-story. This is all one story.
I take it back. The brown and the green that is adjoining the brown are all one story. And so only the addition on the north is gonna be two stories.
And the garage is one.
And the garage is one story.
And all one story.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. I'd like to first bring to your attention a letter that was received today from Tiffany Scarlato, who is representing the neighbors, wherein she asked for additional time to review this project in order to provide comments due to the scope of the project and the extent of setback relief that is being requested. She expresses her regrets for not being able to appear tonight. A copy of that letter is in your packets. There is a preliminary advisory report on file that the applicant spoke about. That's dated October 24, 2023. That is also part of your packet. And before I get into the parameters of the project, I would also agree that there is no provision in Chapter 325 for a bifurcated wetland permitting jurisdiction. But to go beyond that, the applicant had first expressed concern about my description of the project, in that the report had indicated that substantial demolition and reconstruction was being planned with respect to the existing one-story dwelling. And that description was supported by the applicant's survey that indicated that the home was going to be reconstructed. And perhaps more importantly, it's supported by the applicant's testimony tonight, which indicates that the large majority of this residence would have to be taken down and rebuilt with the primary exception of the existing foundation. There are other portions of the residence which the applicant will agree will be entirely removed, inclusive of current foundations, and that shows on the applicant's survey as well. The applicant spoke about the sanitary upgrade to an IAOWTS, and all of us, of course, would agree that that's beneficial with regards to protection and restoration of wetlands and surface water quality. But it should be acknowledged that although that's environmentally beneficial, it's not being offered as can't really be offered as additional mitigation because both county and town law require that the upgrade to an IA because of the scope of construction. What I typically do when a project plan comes before me is I see whether or not there's a way to essentially try and work with the applicant as much as possible to recommend in favor of the extent and types of improvements that are planned, but see if some minor adjustments can be made in the interest of coming forward with a much better project environmentally. And that is especially done when an applicant is seeking relief from the required wetland construction and buffer setbacks. As alluded to by the applicant, while the required construction and buffer setbacks for existing residentially developed property are 100 feet and 75 feet respectively, the applicant is seeking a construction setback of 75 feet landward of the northerly unbulkheaded wetlands. And it's somewhat unclear as to the extent of buffer that is being proposed there, but certainly the applicant is not proposing a compliant buffer that would be 75 feet, nor is a 100-foot building setback being proposed. So when a project plan like this comes forward, what the code requires us to do is to evaluate practicable alternatives in the interest of identifying the least environmentally damaging alternative. If in light of the pre-existing conditions of the property or the configuration or constraints of the property, there are some difficulties in meeting the setbacks. Applicants are nonetheless directed to maximize their setbacks where practicable on the property. So one of the things that jumped forward that was immediately clear with this application is notwithstanding that the applicant is seeking to retain the existing foundation for the once for much of the existing one-story residence, a considerable amount of construction is being planned at entirely new construction and new foundation work is being proposed at setbacks that are significantly less than required. Again, the extension, two-story addition to the home to the north would be set at its closest point 75 feet from wetlands rather than 100 feet. And the buffer would be less than 75 feet. So, consistent with my interest in working with landowners to try and provide the scope of improvements and square footage that they're looking for, what I looked at is a number of options. And one of the options was to look at whether or not the existing residence could be set, whether or not the proposed residence could be set further back on the property in order to not only increase wetland construction and buffer setbacks, but also to offset the setback relief that the applicant is looking for. So I'm gonna hand up for the record an alternative sketch that I did.
We have this one. Is this the same one or a different one?
You have it? Okay. And the applicant has as well, which essentially takes the applicant's plan and just shifts it a little bit further landward. And I found that that could be done in a manner that complies with the dimensional setback requirements as per the building and zoning code, and also complies with the Suffolk County Health Department setback requirements, with only a minor change in the scope of the project. And the change, if you compare my sketch to the applicant's survey that was received on September 8, 2023. The major change is an elimination of the connecting breezeway between the expanded centrally located home and the proposed two-story addition to the north. And what that change would do, coupled with moving the existing residence inclusive of the existing foundation further landward, is provide for a minimum 75-foot setback for construction. And the buffer that would vary from 60 feet to the north, 50 feet west of the residence, and 75 feet to the south. There still is not much clarity with regards to the extent of the buffers that the applicant is offering, certainly because they're seeking relief from the required wetland construction setbacks. They should be doing everything possible that they can do to maximize the naturally vegetated buffers. And unless I misunderstood the applicant, it looks like they're still looking to only retain a 15-foot wide buffer alongside the bulkhead, and then expand the buffer a bit to the north and the south, with the greatest buffer expansion to the south. This alternative sketch, again, was provided to the applicant in order to provide what I see as sufficient mitigation for the setback relief that is being sought and the scope of construction that's being planned. If the applicant does not find this concept reasonable, the code requires that the applicant look at other practicable alternatives in the interest of increasing wetland building setbacks and increasing the buffers. And those alternatives can include a scaling back of construction, particularly of the northerly planned two-story addition, in a manner so that the construction would adhere to the required minimum 100-foot setback, and so that there would be the ability to provide a compliant 75-foot buffer. This is a large project, as indicated by the chair. The size of the existing residence would be nearly doubled. And there are a lot of other improvements. So this is a project which is of much concern with regards to the possible impacts on the on-site wetlands. Nonetheless, trying to do everything I can to recommend in favor of giving the applicant as much of what he desires in a manner that would increase wetland building and naturally vegetated buffer setbacks. So I would ask again that either the applicant revisit the alternative sketches that I have asked that he consider, or that the applicant look to significantly change the extent of construction, particularly to the north end and particularly to the northeast of the main residence, to try and come as close as possible to meeting the minimum required 100-foot wetland setbacks. Obviously, my advisory report provides a lot of additional information, which I'd ask that the board consider. But practicable alternatives as defined by Chapter 325 can include not only shifting the planned construction further landward, but scaling back the extent of construction. So in the event that the applicant has no interest in considering the alternative that I have put forward, I think the applicant needs to go back to the drawing board and come back to this board with a project that's significantly scaled back, and one that at the very least meets the required minimum wetland construction setbacks to the northeast of where the existing home is located. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Marty, thank you for your testimony and for your report. And Marty and I always do try to work together. In this particular case, we're having a harder time than usual. That's why you're here to help us. There are a couple of comments I'd like to make. The first one is that, our obligation under 325 is to evaluate practical alternatives. I think that we've done that. If the board wants us to expand that, I would need some direction. Our obligation is not to find the least environmentally damaging. Of course, we want to find the least environmentally damaging that is practicable, which is our obligation under the code. One thing Marty said kind of tweaked me a little bit, which was he said it was immediately clear that this building needed to be moved back, but it wasn't. So when we made the initial application, we were going to renovate the structure in place. Marty's giving me 2 notices of incomplete application. That was never mentioned in any of those. It didn't come until over a year later in the preliminary report. And that was after we spent a year getting the FEMA map changed from inaccurate to accurate, which is something I had advised staff of that we were doing. So I don't think it was immediately apparent. And quite frankly, I don't think it's beneficial. I think that we can find additional mitigation on the site, and we're going to work to do that. I would say that his recommendation is not, I wrote here, minor changes in the scope of the project. It's not. It's completely demolishing a foundation which was just built 10 years ago, and that we just spent a year defending. Nevertheless, we are here to work with staff and the board to find a solution. So, and I would say, the fact that we're required to remove and relocate the sanitary, the nitrogen doesn't know that. The nitrogen just knows it's less, and the creek says, thank you very much. So I think we get credit for that. But anyway,
Are you suggesting that's mitigation?
I think it's an environmental benefit, and I've quantified it for
That
you.
was not my question.
Do I think it's mitigation? I think technically, I don't think it can qualify since it's obligatory. Nevertheless, I think it's an important aspect of the project. This is severe.
Agreed.
This is
Agreed.
sitting in intertidal groundwater. You can watch the tide come up and down.
Agreed, no question about that.
So I think it's a benefit. It's a significant benefit. I've quantified it for you. I thought you'd be impressed with that Excel spreadsheet. I built it myself. But if the board has, I've listened to Marty's suggestions. It's not, please, Marty knows I don't dismiss him, and the board should know that as well. We will look at ways that we can increase the buffer. Absolutely, we'll look at ways we can enhance the buffer. We will look at ways that we could change some of the arrangement of the additions. We certainly will look at that. However, we're pretty firm on. If we came in and we said, okay, we're not going to take the walls down. Instead, we're going to gut the house and we're going to sister up every 2x4 in there and we'll get it to meet code. I guess that's okay. That doesn't make any sense to me. To go through and in the evaluation of practicable alternatives, practicable means that can you do it in a reasonable, feasible fashion? I mean, that's what the definition says. Is it reasonable, is it reasonable, including costs, to do a renovation that will cost 3 times as much as building something new if the net result at the end is exactly the same? I don't think it is. But if I could hear from the board suggestions that they have where they would like us to evaluate, I would appreciate that.
Question first. You covered this early on, perhaps, but I didn't gather the whole essence of it because I was thinking you were going to do a 2-story where your original house is, but you're not. Why are you changing? Why are you doing anything to the original house? Why don't you just do the additions?
Oh, because the house is, the interior layout of the house is not what the owner desires, and as soon as you get into those structural elements, you've got to meet all the current code.
Yeah, that's where,
That's where the issue comes in.
yeah. Okay.
I mean, you've got the structure code, the fire code, the electrical code, and the energy code, the toughest in New York State.
Here's what I see from what you said, with testimony tonight from you guys, from Marty, and from what I've seen here, is that my first reaction is that this is a very substantial increase in use of the property. Roughly eyeballing it, a threefold increase in usable, that's probably not the right term, in floor space. That includes first and second story. Increasing the bedrooms from, would you say, 3 to 10?
I think it's 4 to 10, yeah.
4 to 10. But you know it's a big project. Don't need to go on about that. It's a very big project. We have to be careful that we do see mitigation. I don't see a lot of mitigation here. And one reason I don't see a lot of mitigation here is because you can't offer a whole lot more mitigation because the structures are so big and they're located in certain places. And that's where Marty's sketch has some validity, because it does allow for greater buffer zones. And just because you want to use all the property and build structures there doesn't mean that's the vision it has to carry when it doesn't meet the recommended setbacks. So you have your ideas what you want to do in this property, but what you've done is you've encroached on the areas that 325 says is more sacred. That is, Marty outlined it, 100-foot setback for structures, 75-foot buffer zone. If you can achieve that, then have at it, build what you want, because that's mitigation for, according to the code, for these things. But you haven't reached that level of mitigation yet. And that's why if you can do some different things here, you may be able to reach that, or you may be able to come closer. One of the biggest areas is right in front of the house, where there has to be a much greater buffer zone. The fire code calls us to keep 10 feet off the house. I haven't heard any reason why that should not be the standard. Those are my thoughts, but I would invite the board to chime in and add to or suggest something.
It is a very big project. Just thinking of 4 bedrooms to 10 bedrooms sums it up for me, not even just the square footage. And I think there has to be more mitigation. Whether you move some of the structures, I'm not sure how to achieve that, but I think there has to be more mitigation. It's just too big, you know.
Anyone else?
Listening and writing.
So when do you want to come back?
When would you like us?
I always enjoy seeing you, Aaron. You know, I miss Tom because he keeps the social calendar very close here. But I'm seeing, oh, this is December 20th, so we're going to be in the new year already. 23 is just about over. We have 2 on for January 10th, 1 on for January 24th, 3 on for February 7th. Don't do February 7th.
January 24, please?
No. I don't think it's right.
24?
Do we have-
Just have-
The 24th, we only have one
Afraid-
for the 24th.
afraid-
Oh, is that all we have?
That's all we have right now. It's all listed
Yeah,
here.
it's not giving us a lot of time for him to come back with a plan and get some feedback.
Well,
it's-
if you can do it in that much time, that has a history of being adjourned. And I haven't heard any news about whether it's gonna go through or not. Seems like we would have heard something.
January 24th? Love to do it.
January 24th.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn until January 24th.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all.
Thank you, and happy holidays, happy new year.
Thank you, you too.
Be safe, but be sure to have fun too.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Ten bedrooms. Okay. Okay.
Want to keep those?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it. Okay.
So why should I expect that to be?
Advisory reports for the planning board, 90 North Sea Mecox Road.
Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. It's a Southampton community affordable housing project in North Sea. There are several comments in response to the pre-application. Based upon a December 12, 2023 field assessment, virtually the entirety of the 3.2 acres tract has been cleared and deforested with little attention given to the environmental benefits of the pre-existing mature woodlands, thereby greatly diminishing the quality of life for the surrounding neighborhood as well as for the future residents of the planned 6-lot subdivision. Second, adverse environmental impacts which have resulted from the apparent unauthorized clearing include loss of essential ecosystem services such as air and water purification, carbon sequestration, thermal cooling, and needed habitat for native flora, insects, songbirds, and other wildlife. And thirdly, the applicant should be required to put forward a plan for reclamation of green space as well as reforestation of the health benefits of the pre-existing forest by preservation of the few remnant mature trees in the far southerly reaches of the tract, together with partial reforestation and supplemental planting of native trees. And just so the board knows, the building division did issue a stop work order after the property was deforested, as that occurred prior to any application being made before the planning board.
Is there a motion sending these comments to the planning board?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administrative wetland permits are in your packets. Resolution to reschedule public hearing, CB 20013, MIR Noyak Realty LLC. Is there a motion to reschedule the public hearing for February 21st?
Motion to reschedule to, you said February 21st?
Yes.
Second.
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby reschedules the public hearing to February 21st, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Conservation Management Plan and Easement Interpretation Resolution of Conditional Approval, R 0220276, Adrian Cheney. Any discussion?
Move to issue?
Second.
Resolved that a conservation management plan be granted to Adrian Cheney pursuant to conservation easement recorded with Suffolk County Clerk on March 14th, 1991, under Liber 11232, page 060, upon the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? R0230076, Michael Anderson and Joanne Anderson. Any discussion?
Move to issue?
Second?
Resolve that an approval be granted to Michael Anderson and Joanne Anderson to amend the terms and conditions of a covenant recorded with the Suffolk County Clerk on January 23rd, 2018, under Libra D 000129447, page 140. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution of conditional approval, A 023025, 1106 North Sea Road LLC. Any discussion?
Move to issue?
Second?
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval granted to 1106 North Sea Road LLC for the proposed project on terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 023052, Sandpiper Waters LLC. Any discussion?
Move to issue?
Second?
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval granted to Sandpiper Waters LLC for the proposed project on terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 023054, Lucy Jensen. Any discussion?
Move to issue? Second?
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval granted to Lucy Jensen for the proposed project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 023062, Donovan Moore and Ann Moore. Any discussion?
Move to issue?
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval granted to Donovan Moore and Ann Moore for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Preliminary review second determination, A 022038, Crumholtz 119 Sand Dune LLC, and this is in Village of Sagaponic.
Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. This application relates to an existing residentially developed property on Sand Dune Court in the village of Sagaponic. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated December 14, 2023. This is a essentially redevelopment plan for a property that contains wetlands that are associated with the Sag Pond floodplain. This is one in which I've spent an extensive amount of time with the applicants to work towards reasonable redevelopment scheme, as well as to put forward considerable mitigation in the form of covenanted wetland preservation areas, covenanted naturally vegetated buffers, as well as additional native landscaping at the project site. The applicant has submitted final plans, which have deemed to be consistent with all my recommendations. This is an application for which we have sufficient information to make a determination as such, recommending that the hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Second?
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 225 of the Code of the Village of Sagaponic. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 022082, Erlinda Bildner, postponed to January 10th. Is there a motion?
Motion to postpone until January 10th?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 022101, Eric Belfi and Tara Belfi, also postponed to January 10th.
Motion postponed to January 10th?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A 023022, Guillaume Saladier, postponed to January 10th.
Motion to postpone to January 10th? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 023029, Stephen J. Van Kuken, Family 2020 Irrevocable Trust.
This application relates to an existing residentially developed property on Crescent Street in the hamlet of Noyak. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated December 6, 2023. The application has been put forward as the applicant is seeking this board's approval to renovate the existing dwelling and construct additions. They're also looking to replace the existing swimming pool with newly reconfigured pool and patios. And then there is other hardscape work that's being done at the site as well. Actually, that is not the correct property on the screen. Here it is. So the property is encumbered by a covenanted buffer. As you can see, the parcel is not compliant with that with that covenant, and buffer has an expansive lawn at the site. I did have a lengthy pre-application meeting with the property owners when I flagged the wetlands, which resulted in revised plans being put forward, which include not only reclamation of the existing buffer, but significant expansion of that buffer so that the buffer will be maximized. This is an application for which we have sufficient information, make a determination as such, recommending that the hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Second?
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution to issue modification, CB 22002, Stephen R. Shoemate. Any discussion?
Second?
Resolved that a wetlands permit modification be issued Stephen R. Shoemate for the proposed project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.